Alright, guys. Moving right along to our next Patreon request, and this one comes from Tom Hibbert, who asked me to do a Patreon request of a Transformers Sailor Moon crossover. Which I feel like this should have come from Jason, considering like this would be something Jason Voorhees 2011. Which I'm so shocked that he got beat to the punch by it. He basically got beat to the punch for a Transformers Sailor Moon Patreon request. But anyway, so as always, excuse me. As always, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below. Head on over to my Patreon where you guys can start sending me requests for videos to do here on YouTube. But other than that, let's get started with this video. So the story begins, like in the Decepticon base in Nemesis, and essentially what's going on is that among the Decepticons, there's one Decepticon that usually gets forgotten. It's Reflector. Reflector has been feeling weird lately. Like, Reflector has been acting, like, strange lately. And Megatron is starting to suspect something. So one day, Megatron confronts Reflector, and he's like, what are you... there's been a disturbance around you, and is it something I should deal with? And he, like, charges up his fusion cannon and is like, is it something I need to be concerned with and something I need to deal with? And they're like, and he's like, no, Lord Megatron, totally no. It's like, there's just been like some kind of weird, like, disturbance within me. And he's like, disturbance? And he's like, yeah, something weird's been going on with me. And Megatron is like, explain. Like, yeah, he basically tells the guy straight up, like, explain yourself. And Reflector explains that for a while now, something has been going on within his system. Like, he's been hearing like a voice in his head, and it started out as like a little whisper. It started out in the battlefield, and I thought my audio receptors were kind of weird because we were fighting the Autobots, but no, it's something. But then the voice grew louder and louder, and to which Megatron is like, what did this voice say? Like, what is this voice, what has this voice been telling you? And it says, set me free. So he takes him, Megatron takes him to Cybertron, where he brings him to Shockwave, and he says, I want to know if the Autobots are like using Reflector as like a infiltration unit, or if this is something else. And Shockwave does some digging. Shockwave more or less digs around in his circuitry, and that's when they discover that Shockwave discovers that there is someone trying to take control of Reflector, and that person is Nahana Lena, one of the villains from Sailor Moon. And Nahana Lena, if you guys don't know, she's a nightmare queen from the dark side of the moon, and uses mirrors a lot. And Reflector, his whole thing is that he becomes a camera and has a lot of reflective surfaces. So Nahana Lena more or less reached out from her dimension and touched minds with Reflector and was trying to get enough control of his body to open the space bridge to his world, a space bridge to her world, so she could step through. However, now that she's been, discovered, now she's like, well, now I have to kill all of you. And Megatron's like, you could, or I could kill you, because you're on Cybertron, and, you now face the full might of the war, the greatest fighter of our kind. But perhaps a little alliance could help. So Nahana Lena agrees to an alliance with Megatron in order to get her freedom from her dimension. So essentially what she does is that she gets sent to terrorize the Autobots. She is sent on a mission to terrorize the Autobots and use their own, twist their Cybertronic minds in an attack, and that's exactly what she does. She goes on a straight up rampage in their heads. Nahana Lena more or less just starts tearing at their psyches. in unleashing monsters throughout the arc. This, however, Wheeljack, Cliffjumper, RC, and Cosmos are unaffected, or managed to be unaffected by this because they were outside of the base when this happens. And Optimus is like, just kinds of warns them, don't come back. You guys need, go to Japan, find Sailor Moon. So that's what they have to do, is like they have to travel to Japan in order to find Sailor Moon. And they're like, why do we need to find Sailor Moon? And he's like, doesn't matter, that was Optimus's plan, that was Optimus's orders. So they board Cosmos, and they travel to Japan in order to find who they believe can help them. So it's also, so what happens is that they travel, and they have to go around finding Sailor Moon, and how they do it is pretty funny. Essentially, they find Usagi de-transformed from Sailor Moon after fighting a monster, and they follow her home, and that's when Cliffjumper basically kidnaps her, and more or less is like, whoa, don't panic, I'm an Autobot, I'm sure you heard of us, don't panic, everything's cool, don't scream. So that's when they say you're Sailor Moon. We Autobots know of the Sailor Guardian lineage. And that's when Wheeljack tells them, like, we know about you guys, and Prime wouldn't have sent us if it wasn't... Optimus Prime wouldn't have sent us if that was an imperative. And that's when Sailor Mars is like, you know about us? Because they... the other Sailor Guardians thought that Usagi got kidnapped, and that's when they was like, holy shit, it's the Autobots. And RC explains that in our history, the Silver Millennium had encountered, travelers from Cybertron encountered people from the Silver Millennium eons ago, and the 13 Primes, the 13 disciples of Primus, actually, were friends with, the ones who didn't become total psychopaths befriended Princess Serenity, and they actually helped fight off a battle with Megatronus, one of the fallen Prime. So from there was kind of a shared history there. So they tell Sailor Moon, look, something's wrong with Optimus, we need your help, and you need to come with us now. So they travel there, so they go back to the Ark, and that's where they discover that Nehainalena is just torturing the Autobots, and even enslaving some of them under her will. And of course, the Megatron and the Decepticons arrive to basically allow Megatron to wallow in his crapulence, and is like, haha, I've done it, I've succeeded in defeating the Autobots, and now with this dream demon's help, I shall be able to conquer this world and feast on its energon. And she's like, hey, you said I'd take care of the Nehainalena's like, hey, you said it once I took care of the Autobots, you'd free me. And he's like, I did. Well, the plan's been... he's like, I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it more. And that's when the Autobots and the Sailor Guardians arrive. And that's when he's like, it looks like you didn't finish the job. And that's when Nehainalena's like, oh shit, that's Sailor Moon. I know of her. Be wary. So the combined forces of the Autobots and the Sailor Guardians fight back, and even Sailor Moon manages to free a lot of the mental hold that Nehainalena has on the Autobots. It even leads to a fight between Megatron and Usagi, where Megatron's like, I've heard about the princess of the Silver Millennium. I thought it, even back when I was a gladiator, I thought those stories were overhyped. And that's when Sailor Moon just blasts him in the face, and she's like, still think it's overhyped? But yeah, so by the end of it, the Decepticons escape. Nehainalena is still trapped in her dimension, and the Autobots are freed. So, yeah, there you go, guys. There's your Sailor Moon Transformers crossover. You guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of this? And once again, I would like to thank Tom Hibbert for this Patreon request, as well as continued patronage. But other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.